for this painting class, but with my technology, nothing seems to be happening. So hopefully you guys will just check this out on my live play. I'm just allowing my Wi-Fi to just cooperate, and I hope that we have not a lot of technical problems today with this class. Right, let me just adjust my camera so you guys can see me nicely. Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to my very first live streaming painting class. This is based here in Pretoria, South Africa, and we enjoy beautiful nature, being grounded for the day under a tree, and really explore our inner landscape at the canvas. So this is really exciting for me to be able to use this platform in order to reach a wider audience, especially my friends that live overseas or outside of this particular region where I'm living. So I've had a lot of people. So I think things are happening. I just wanted to make sure that I have everything flowing here before I really start concentrating on giving you the class and the demo and all of that. So I want you guys just to bear with me today. I don't have a very professional setup. I'm literally using one of my phones, and that means that when we get down to the table, I'm going to have to unhook my phone and clip it in again on another setting. So do bear with me if there is some movement and some unexpected noise. I will also be using my hair dryer today. I will use it on a low setting. And if I remember, I'm going to tell you just to turn your either your earphone or your set volume down, because I don't want this painting class, you know, when we are in between sort of layers and applying paint, that is usually where I get to discuss some information with the people attending my class and also get feedback. So I'm going to have to try and speed this up today during those layers in order for me to have this down in a reasonable time. What I can tell you is, as we go forward, you are allowed to pause the stream at any time if you want to use your hairdryer to dry your canvas. Forgive me. So that you can apply the next layer and then just press play again and resume your live streaming with me. And that way you will always be sort of on the same page with me as the stages of the painting develops, right? Okay, so let's get this party starting, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me introduce myself. My name is Gideon Krokamp. I'm your creatively fit coach, and I live in Pretoria, South Africa. And it is in the middle of winter here, so my toes are freezing. I'm standing on a little carpet here just so that my toes can remain warm. And I'm very interested to hear where you are watching from. So please, comments or in the live chat, just tell me where you're from, where you're watching from, and tell us a little bit about yourself. And that's always nice. So what I am going to do, I won't be able to watch the live chat as we go. So if you have a question for me, please just type it in the live chat. And then after the session, I will go back to this whole production and I will look at all the comments and I will answer them personally for you. But I do hope that I will explain everything very clearly to you so that you know exactly what you need to do next and how you need to do that. So in order to start, I thought I would share with you just a basic list of what we will need for today's class. So you can work on a canvas board, you can work on a stretched canvas, you can work on paper, watercolor paper, whatever you prefer. I do think it looks rather nice if you use, you know, a 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter board. This is a canvas board. And then I also have stretched canvas here with that nice depth that you can see. So that can be a lot of fun. So it really doesn't matter. Whatever surface you're going to work on, I will be guiding you through the process. You will also be needing acrylic paint. And your acrylic paint in your favorite colors is usually more than sufficient for this class. Sorry, I'm just very excited. Then let me think. I also suggest that you have a pencil and maybe a Posca pen, a white Posca pen if you have one. It's not critical if you don't have these things. You can use whatever you have around you and make use with that. What I will use the chalk or the chalk pencil for is just to outline the Hamsa hand on the canvas, and I will be demonstrating all of that for you. So you can use an ordinary pencil or a piece of chalk just to give you a very light outline that you can use during your painting. But I will be guiding you with all of that. You will also need some water, maybe a kitchen towel, a palette, just to dispense your paint on, a variety of brushes. I like to use an angle brush, but you can use just a flat or a filbert, whatever you have. And then just a fine liner brush to do the detail and outlining with. But that, you can do this painting with your fingers. You don't need specialized equipment, and you certainly don't need a lot of experience. In fact, you don't need any experience at all, because I will be guiding you through the process. Now, I know with guys that show up for my class in painting in the park, there's always that tension in the beginning of the session because, we're going to be drawing, we're going to be painting. And I know that the very, very first limiting belief that I like to address as a creatively fit coach is the idea that creativity or making art is reserved for creative people or for artists. Now, the very first thing that I throw out to you is that I believe that we are all artists. That includes you, because we are the artists of our lives, right? So coming to the canvas and being creative, I like to remind people that creativity is inherently part of who you are. It is built into your DNA. It is built into your mind. You have a left brain, you have a right brain, and we use all of these faculties to survive. Creativity is essential for survival. So if you walks around thinking, believing that you are not creative because you don't draw pictures or have an art practice or have a massive desire to create art because you've sort of disconnected from your right brain, I'm here to tell you that you're missing out, because creativity is used by all of us every single day. We use it to solve problems. We use it to think outside the box, to spark inspiration, and to sort of direct our lives in a particular direction. And this is where the two areas converge for me, between creative, inherent attitudes that we have, along with our sort of inborn ability to find a solution to a problem. And that certainly takes creativity. Excited to, or you were privileged to go to art school and you went in a professional direction as an artist, and you are also welcome here. Thank you. So, or you are like an accountant, or somebody that works with numbers. You're in an office. Maybe you're a lawyer, or something that really requires a logical mind. You use your left brain to sort of process facts and numbers and figures like that. So we have this balance within us. And unfortunately, our schooling system in the world really starts to develop the left brain, because that is where we learn to sort of absorb information and it tends to come forward. Whenever we try something new, your left brain will be that voice in your mind that tells you, oh, that line is skew. Oh my God, what are you doing? You're making a mess. Do you sort of identify with that? So that voice is what I like to call the critical nanny. And during a creative session, I remind my clients to just be aware of that critical nanny voice, and maybe for the first time stop and ask yourself, whose voice am I hearing? What does that voice sound like? Is it maybe the voice of your mother or your father? Is it the voice of a teacher or a tutor, or maybe a peer or a grandparent, a family member, a teacher? And that person was maybe overly critical in your life, and in some way we start to sort of adapt that voice going forward when they're no longer guiding us, and we tend to hear that voice because it's sort of been programmed into our left brain to sort of remind you constantly that you are trying something new, and you've tried this in the past and it didn't work out, and these are all the reasons why it won't work out today. So during this session, trust me, that critical nanny voice is going to come up and talk to you and tell you that you can't do this. I want you just to tell that voice to just shush a little bit. You are not saving world hunger. You're not, solving a big world problem today with this art. You are creating something for yourself, and you are just tell that voice, it's okay, you can take a break today. Your services aren't required. I'm just simply playing. And you will find that voice will quiet down. Because when you really get into it, what will happen is you switch over to your right brain. And that is where I want you today. In our right brain is where we connect with all of our senses, and we also connect with our intuition and our higher self. So that is a place where things are exciting. That is where we try new things, and we want to play and smell and taste and experience, because it is connected to all that is. That's really wonderful. So the left brain is me, myself, and I, me versus the world. So you can see that that is duality and separation, and it is a little bit more fear-based. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that fear, because that fear is what keeps you alive. It's that fear and critical voice and warning voice in your left brain that reminds you, when you put your hand in the fire, it will burn you. So we do need the left brain. We do need that voice that says, yo, be careful, this is dangerous, because it keeps us safe, right? But when we go into art and creating, we want to sort of just being that is connect to all that is unified, that understands that there is no separation, that is more love-based, to sort of take the lead and open up to that playful experience. So I like to remind my clients that the canvas is simply a metaphor for your life. And the attitudes and the thoughts and the emotions and the feelings that will come up for you during this creative process is what I am after. That is, because I think in a traditional life session, there's a lot of sitting and talking and reflecting and 1,001 questions to answer to steer your reflection mind into a particular direction. But what I found is that a lot of people don't complete those life coaching sessions, especially after the first two or so, because it can feel rather overwhelming, right? Looking at all these questions and realizing that, you know what, it suddenly feels like I don't have everything together in my life. And why bother starting, right? I also understand us as human beings are beings of habit. We like our comfort zone, right? In our comfort zone, we figure things out. We know it is efficient and the shortest or the easiest way to accomplish there. And you sort of become dull, and you become sort of disconnected from trying new things. And this whole experience is all about opening up, trying something uncomfortable, because that is the zone where personal growth happens. That is the zone where we connect with our personal resilience, and we realize again that we are creative and we can tackle almost any problem either by ourselves, using our mental capacities and sort of relying on our natural resilience, and or learning to ask for help or assistance when we need it. So about this creative process and a personal painting practice is that when you are becoming quiet at the canvas and you are starting the color and the shape and the form, what happens is that you start to expand. It becomes quiet in your mind. This is the part during this class where I really love that silent moment, and we can hear the birds in the trees, and I can see that that chatterbrain is quiet down in my audience, and everyone's in the right brain zone where there is just harmony and peace and a mindfulness that's really profound. And it has been proven that creating art puts you in a mental alpha state in your brain waves, where you almost reach the same state that a Buddhist monk or a person that is meditating attains. So it's that quiet Zen kind of space happens in your mind and in your being. And that has incredible personal health benefits. So brings down your blood pressure, helps you to sleep better, helps you to communicate better because you plugged into your personal resilience. You trust your intuition because you figured these things out at a canvas where it is less threatening than just, setting goals and going for it out there. So I hope that you will enjoy this creative coaching session today. And I remind you that this canvas is really a metaphor about you. It gives you an opportunity to learn to love yourself through loving your art, loving the marks that you made, lines that you thought, oh my word, what am I? Remind people constantly, that this idea of I'm perfect, therefore I'm not going to try, is such a far-fetched limiting belief. I really like to break that one down because it's one of those limiting beliefs that can limit you for the rest of your life, not only as the idea that you might not be an artist, but really it starts to affect all the areas of your life, your relationships, your career, you name it. So really become aware of those limiting beliefs. So, I always say as you work and you become frustrated because the brush is not doing what you want it to do, the paint is not doing what you want it to do. Isn't that very similar to life? What I want you to become aware of then is what emotion arises for you. Are you becoming frustrated? Are you becoming angry? Are you starting to think, oh, this is a waste of time? Are you giving up? Because those are the attitudes that sort of is by default set in your mind and in your orientation towards life. So whether you try something new in your career, in your relationships, in at home, anything new will be challenging. It will be hard, right? So if you have never learned to drive a bike, that's a good example. Or you haven't, sort of driven a bike in a long time, maybe since you were in primary school, you will know that it took a little bit of practice, right? In order to get on the bike, to get the training wheels off, and to have the confidence and the balance of your middle ear tuned to, staying on the bike and moving forward and being in control of that vehicle. So I like to sort of compare that with life. Everything in life is like that. So even art and creating art, I think a lot of people walk around and say, oh, I remember doing something in primary school or when I was a toddler. It's not really not that hard. And then they get into it and they go, oh my word, this is harder than I remember. And then, there's a bit of oomph on the canvas and you go, oh my God, I really can't do this. Clearly, I'm not an artist. And that's usually where a lot of people give up. They put the art supplies away and they leave it for the ones that apparently look like they know what they're doing. So I just want to encourage you guys to just be aware of all of those limiting beliefs that run amok in your mind, and you must become aware of it to realize how it can sabotage you everywhere else in your life. If you're not aware of that attitude, and going to the canvas is definitely one of the best ways to do that. So I'm really excited to share with you guys today and how we are going to create on our canvas. Right. So I'm just checking here on my list that I've mentioned everything before we turn the camera around. Right. So during a painting process, if this is your first painting, if this is the first time you're working with acrylic paint, or it's been a while, let me remind you that creating something beautiful like this with acrylic paint takes a number of layers. And I think this is the one thing that most people don't know about acrylic paint. So the advantages are that the paint dries quickly, so it really is a magical medium that opens it up to everyone. Because if we try to do this in oil painting, for example, it would take weeks to dry, right? So that's really challenging. So if you maybe used to work with oil and you have all that open time to blend the color to a heart's content, you will find acrylic paint to be a little bit frustrating in the beginning. But if you understand that it's all about drying and adding another layer, that's when you get to the juicy, beautiful bits about acrylic painting. So trust me, every painting has an ugly stage. And that's usually at that stage where people give up. So I'm going to guide you in a very simple, basic painting made easy process, and I will show you step by step how I created this beautiful hamsa behind me. Okay, so see this demonstration as a learning curve. You can apply this technique and methodology that I'm going to be showing you today in so many ways, you know. So once you understand the principle of positive and negative painting and how you can sort of mix lighter shades using white or a darker tone, shade is with a black and white is a tint. So then you can use highlights and lowlights of the same color. But I'm going to be mixing all these colors with you guys and sharing with you all the information that you require. Okay. So I think I've bubbled enough in front of the camera. So now I want you guys just to bear with me as I turn this camera around and face it down on my desk so that we can start painting our hamsa. Okay, so bear with me. Here I go. Exciting. Let me just switch my camera view around. There we go. Okie dokie. Let me just make sure everything is zoomed in on this table so that you guys can see. And I'm excited to get into this painting. All right. Okay, guys, here we go. So I'm really excited. Let me have a sip of coffee. I hope you've got something to drink. So if you're watching this live, and I also asked you guys if you are willing, I would really appreciate a financial blessing. I will add my PayPal link to the description of this live, and I would really appreciate it because I will use that financial blessings to purchase more art supplies and to continue to do what I'm doing. But it's not expected. It is only there if you want to make use of it. I say thank you for that. I appreciate it. I really hope to expand my channel, get better equipment and get a better setup so that I can continue to offer everyone, you know, this wonderful service as a creatively fit coach. Great. Let's get into our painting. So I've prepared my board. I've actually used this before, so I just put a layer of geisha on there. So the very first thing that I want you guys to do is maybe just to grab a pencil, and I like to just set some intentions on my canvas so that you guys this becomes sort of an amulet. And I really think that a Hamsa is such a powerful symbol of protection, of abundance, and, warding off the evil eye. And that evil eye could be, people that is jealous about, what you have attained in your life, protecting your abundance and prosperity, and just warding off, any negativity that can derail your life. So it really is such a powerful symbol that has been explored over all the cultures in the world. So it's one of those ancient symbols. So the very first thing that I want you guys to do is just to set an intention. And I'm just going to use a pencil here. So I want you to think of, the things that you worry about. And, that's usually right at the front of the left brain, ready to roll. I know most of us have a whole list of things that we are worrying about and we're concerned about and we're scared about. And, that's normal for us as human beings to worry about the future, to stress about our finances and where the world is going and how that is going to affect our livelihood and our living every day, right? So wherever you are in the world, trust me, if you are a human being, you definitely have some challenges, and worrying is just sort of built into our left brain. But this is one way that we can sort of let go of those worries a little bit and focus our vibration and intention on what we do want to experience more of. So I find, it's easier in life to just flow and just using intention to direct the energy of life rather than to resist and to try and control, because control is the biggest illusion of them all. So just set an intention on your canvas. I really like the protective aspect of the Hamsa. So my prayer today is, and you can just write this right on your canvas: may all living beings everywhere let me just see here, that sees this Hamsa, so that includes you watching this episode, be safe from danger, be free from suffering, be happy, live with ease and grace, and attain enlightenment to end all suffering. Isn't that beautiful? That is my wish for the world today, with all the strife and separation and duality and fear and violence and anger. I really think that is all based in the whole idea that we are separate from each other and we must learn to cooperate and to work along with each other. All right. So that is my intention for this Hamsa, and I really trust that this energy will radiate out as I continue to create this powerful amulet today. Right. So now the next thing I want to play with is just looking at the color wheel, and I want to discuss just, success for this particular project that I think works well. If you're a beginner, I want you to start with your favorite color. Maybe you want to use your favorite color as the main feature. In my world, everyone that knows me, I really love a blue, green, or a turquoise, and that's going to be my main color. Then I want you just to look at the opposite side of the color wheel, and that gives you a complementary color scheme. So if I sort of just cover up everything else here, you can see what I mean. The blue, green, and right opposite from it on my color wheel, there is a red, orange. So that is my personal sort of color palette that I really enjoy working with. I think it works but you can really use any color you want. So just check out my color wheel and maybe just identify where your favorite color is. Maybe your favorite color is, you know, a red, violet, or a purple, or a pink. And then you will have to use a green, a yellow green as the opposite, and so forth. So you can get the gist of that. And I think this really goes towards a proven way in color theory to use something that will be dynamic and effective on your sort of painting journey. Right, so I'm going to be using my opposite color now to prepare my canvas. So I'm going to use a red orange acrylic paint, and for that I've got here a Montmartre orange, and I actually have a bit of a common red as well. I have to mix these two together to give me a red orange. And then I have my turquoise here, which is my blue green on the other side, and I'm going to be using these colors. And I also have my black. This is just lamp black. And I have my titanium white. That's going to give me lighter tints and deeper shades. Now I've said it correctly. And then I also have here that I will use today a phthalo blue and a phthalo green. Actually, coincidentally, putting these two together creates a blue-green shade that I like, but just sort of more pure, as this is a pre-mixed turquoise and it's already in a medium shade. Right, so those are the colors I'll be using. So I'm going to start my process here today by covering all of this up with a rather deeper color. And I'm just going to use my palette knife here to dispense some of my color. I hope you guys are able to see nicely and that you are all revved up and ready to go. I'm going to mix in a little bit of that carmine red as well, just so that it's more of a orange red or red orange. And I'm going to use this brush to mix the two together so that I don't have to struggle a bit later in trying to create this particular shade. So you can see how that deepens the orange. There's a little bit more red to it. It's not just orange. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit of black to it. Now, this is the exciting part, because we want a bit of a darker background that all the lighter shades will show up from. Now, here's the thing. Black is very powerful. You don't need a lot of black. So I'm going to just add that. You can always add more, but you can't subtract. You can't take it out. So I don't want you to mix buckets full of color, because you don't need that much. Oh, I'm so sorry. The camera is standing right here next to me, and I want you guys to see very nicely what I'm doing. So mixing in the black into this red orange mixture gives me a very beautiful deep dark brown, and that's really exciting. So you guys can see I've got a dark brown, and really what it is a dark orange. Who knew, right? This particular brown is then a brown that I created using my main color and black. So I'm using, or I've created what I call a tint, no, a shade. I always mix the two around, so forgive me. Right, so let's get into this section where we just cover up the canvas entirely with this one shade of color. So you can use your favorite color, and then you can jump to the opposite contrasting color on your color wheel, whatever that may be. And you can start with that one first by adding a little bit of black, because we want to start with a nice contrasting base. So technically, even though this looks brown, it reads as a very dark orange, especially when I now add the turquoise on top of this. This will all make sense to you as we go. Now, all of the previous layers of my painting is already on here. I just covered it with some gesso. I used this board in a previous class. So I like all these encapsulated layers. And I'm just putting a thin layer of this brown on here. It's going to help you later when you paint on top of it, because the canvas, if it's not been prepped, can be quite raw and chalky. And when you paint on that, it can feel like the paint is skipping and you're not getting good coverage. So this is why I do this. And then it will also give us a very nice, dark, deep background to work on with our colors. So don't be scared. You can cover your entire canvas with this one color. I'm just going to use a water spray bottle. This is just a water bottle with a mister. I just want to spread out my paint a little bit more. So by adding a little bit of water like that, it just makes it a little bit more spreadable. But you don't want this layer to be sopping wet. I think a lot of people put too much water in their acrylic paint, and then you have a real wet mess. That is nice if you want to blend, but it's not so nice if you want to get to your next layers and you have to wait half an hour for it to dry. So don't add too much water. You just want it to be spreadable. And don't worry about the brush marks. I think it just adds a little bit of interest later. Sure, I did go, I could use a bigger brush, really. I didn't have to use such a small brush. I just didn't want to dirty all my brushes as in the first set, sort of set. Right. Okie dokie. That's all covered up. Now rinse your brush really well, because you don't want your acrylic paint to dry in your brush, because then it will feel like a piece of plastic. So I always have 2 buckets of water, one to rinse off the paint. If there's a lot of paint on your brush, rather wipe it off on your tissue first. And then a second one just with cleaner water, just to clean my brush with. That way I know that there's no hidden color on my brush for when I need it again. So this is all you have to do up until now. So I'm going to use my hairdryer now just to dry this paint so that we can continue with our next step. So I want you guys just to turn down the volume on your device so that you don't get ear damage. And I'm quickly going to dry this layer. You at home can also pause the video at this stage and also just catch up with me, and when you are ready you can resume this session. Okay, so here we go. Alrighty then, I'm back. I hope you guys are able to see. Let me just check in. I don't have a technical team. It's just me, myself, and I. Here we go. Okay, cool. We're still rolling. That's wonderful. Okie dokie. So that really is the first step, you guys. It's really not that hard. You can see. Okay, so now we need this layer to be completely dry. Otherwise, if you're going to paint on something wet, if I, for example, now want to use my turquoise and this layer is still wet, then it will become matte. So this is the secret about acrylic paint. Really just allow a layer to dry. It must just be not sticky anymore, because then you can start playing with your next layer. Okay. So now this is step 2, everyone, and I want you now to think of this as a freedom layer. We want to add some interesting marks and colors and brush marks that would create the interest that we have in the background. Now that can look like anything. So for this, I'm going to be using, let's see, some of this turquoise. I'm going to be using a little bit of a bigger um, angle brush. I'm just going to hold it on my hands just so that you can sort of get an idea. It's not a massive brush. And I'm going to dispense a little bit of my turquoise paint onto my palette. Now, when I say I want you to make marks, I really want you to follow your intuition. What is your sort of instinct saying for you, saying to you? Maybe you like, spirals. Maybe you like circles. Or maybe you just want to play and use a stencil. You can really use any way or means to add interesting marks and color on top of this dark background. However, if you're using a student grade paint that doesn't have a lot of pigment, you will need to add maybe just a drop of titanium white just to give it a little bit of opacity and an ability to show up. Otherwise, maybe you have a color that's translucent and when you make a mark, you won't really see it. Okay. So I've played around and I've recently created a few hamsas for my exhibition that's coming up on the 2nd of September. And I've just misted this particular bit of paint of mine because it is a bit older, it's a bit thicker, and I just want to improve the fluidity. Now, one of the things I like to do, and you can try this and maybe you also like it, is I'm just going to make a mark like that. And it's almost like chicken feet. Or, if I place the circle around this would be, like the peace symbol. So I'm thinking about world peace, I'm thinking about harmony, I'm thinking about everyone cooperating. So this is sort of how I want to unify the world, and just using my brush to just press into the paint, and I'm just going to repeat this little pattern until I'm happy. So the freedom layer really is all about expressing yourself and playing on your canvas, getting familiar with your paint and sort of figuring out how it works. So just load your brush with a bit of paint. And now I'm using my main color, which is going to be turquoise. And I'm just going to start here in the middle of my canvas, and it will all begin to make sense to you as we go. So there's no right or wrong. It can be random. It can be very precise. That will all depend on your personality, right? So this is just a way for me to begin to play and express myself on the canvas. And like I said, I don't always, follow a very particular pattern. That's all up to you. Whatever looks pretty, whatever is working for you. So maybe you like playing with circles, so maybe you can draw circles over your canvas, but go sort of at a pace that feels comfortable for you. And I like to sort of start in the middle of my canvas because that's sort of where the hand is going to go. And you're going to see you're going to use your own hand later as your template. So that's why I sort of start in the middle. And I also know where I'm going to go with this project. So I know that later I'm going to be covering up a lot on the exterior part of my canvas. So my focus or my visible part is going to be mostly in the middle of my canvas. So be mindful of that if that helps to direct you in any way. So if you've got a little bit of pattern going on your canvas, I want you to begin to think of variety. Really, quite a magical thing because it sort of prevents us creating something that looks very boring. So I'm just going to be adding a little bit of, forgive me that I knocked the camera again, sorry. I'm going to be adding a bit of white to my palette. This is just titanium white. And I'm also going to be adding a little bit of black. This is going to help me to mix a variety of shades that I can paint with. Just focus on one color for now, your main color. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to mix a variety of shades. So let's rinse our brush. That felt a little bit clogged up with paint. There we go. I'm not too worried that it must be completely clean right now because I'm going to stay with the same color. I'm just going to mix a lighter tint. And for that, I'm going to use my white. And I'm going to bring it to my turquoise. And I'm going to mix the two together until I get a shade that's visibly lighter than my main color. So you can see this is a few shades lighter. There we go. And when I have a satisfactory color, I can go ahead and continue to make little patterns. And I like to sort of stick with one kind of pattern that I'm making, because then later that begins to, create harmony in our painting. And we're using variety to play with here. And because I've already painted my background with a particular color, it already adds a layer. Can you see that? So it's not just the white canvas anymore. And when you start to see too much of the same color, maybe go back into your turquoise and add, some depth again. And now we're getting sort of a tone or a shade, a tint. There's that is in between. Using the same color, but I have a variety. It's not just one color all the time. There is a variety of the same color. And I'm just using repetition. And repetition is another design principle that I like to play with, that brings sort of a whole interest to my canvas that will ensure success in the end. I do like to play with these principles and elements of design on my channel. So if you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell, because I do offer a weekly free art class on a Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock South Africa Standard Time. Right, that looks interesting for me. Now let's go ahead and mix a shade. And a shade is when we use a little bit of black and we mix that with our main color. I hope you guys can see. So it sort of grays it down quite a bit. So this will be like a turquoise kind of gray, if we want to call it that. So now again, we have variety here. So let's continue to add yet another shade. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more black in order to create a nice darker shade of my main color. So again, if you were using pink, you can just add a bit of black to your pink, and that will give you a shade color. And I sort of overlap some of these patterns a little bit, so that creates visual interest because we have movement, we have a variety of pattern and color that we are applying. And you guys can see I'm really focusing more towards the center of my canvas, because I know that that is basically where my hand is going to be. I'm not going to waste a lot of time filling everything up from one corner to the other. Of course, if that makes you happy, you're welcome to do that. But a lot of this is going to be covered up. So I'm also just leaving a bit of breathing space in between some of these brush marks, so that some of my background also still shines through. Right, I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to rinse that out really well. How are you guys doing? I hope that you're enjoying this so far. And if you feel like at this stage that that critical nanny that I talked about is starting to kick in, and it's starting to tell you that you're making a mess and that you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. Just remember to tell that critical voice to calm down a little bit and not to be so loud, because we are simply playing, right? We are not painting a Picasso. So while this is drying, I thought I just wanted to share with you guys just a little bit about the Hamsa Hand. And the Hamsa Hand is a universal sign of protection, power, and strength that dates back to ancient Mesopotamia. It is known as the Hand of Fatima in Islam and the Hand of Miriam in Judaism. It is believed to protect against the evil eye and all negative energy. So really, this is such a powerful symbol. And as a creative coach, I do love to work with symbolism and to explore a symbol while we are painting, and to discover more information about it that could really maybe bring you to an aha moment, or something that you realize about your life that you maybe were thinking about and you're wondering maybe about a solution or a direction, and you don't have that information, and going through this process maybe something jumps out at you, something stands out, something resonates with you. And that is what I want you to be aware of. So do take notes on the side, in your art journal or on a piece of paper, so that if you have a lightning moment where you understand something, there's clarity that comes to you, then that is exactly what you needed to get out of this painting, and you can see how you can apply that to your life going forward. So symbolism really is the language of the right brain, and it is something that we can interpret almost immediately. So that is really profound. Think about a stop street. We all know what a stop street looks like. So when you see a stop street, you know that you must come to a standstill, because that is going to keep you safe, right? You must observe your environment before proceeding. And working on a painting like this with very particular symbolism has the same impact on the mind, because you understand the symbol and then what it means to everyone and how it helps everyone sort of to exhibit the same behavior or understanding around that particular symbol. And then obviously there is more information based on everyone's personal perception, because everyone's world is actually quite unique. And that is where I encourage my clients to really use this time as a practice to love your own mark making, because your mark making is individual. It is absolutely something unique to you. It is like your handwriting. And when you don't love what you do, if you hate your handwriting, for an example, that's sort of a form of self-hate, isn't it? Because you're always comparing. You're comparing with other people whose handwriting you do like. And I'm saying, as an artist, if you learn to love the marks that you make, that's unique to you, you're halfway there already. And it really takes a lot of artists a very, very long time to fall in love with their own mark making, and to allow that to develop. And it can only really begin to develop once you start loving it and accepting it for what it is. So again, I come back to that perfectionism. If you constantly feel, oh, this line is skewed, that line is crooked, as an artist, I think that is far more interesting than something that's printed. So we are not trying to print anything, we're not trying to make something perfect, we are just really trying to give expression to ourselves and to allow that to sort of become part of the experience. So for me, ultimately, a creative practice like this is an opportunity to practice self-love, self-acceptance, patience, persistence, tolerance. If you can practice it with yourself and begin to love what you create by yourself, then you don't need as much approval from everyone else around you. Maybe that is an aha moment. Are you constantly looking for approval from outside? Do you constantly like to hear that praise of, oh, that's nice, you're really good at this? So if that is maybe your orientation, see how you can use a creative practice in order to learn and to practice to love and accept yourself as you are. And I really think that is powerful, because if you do that with yourself, then that is resilience that you can take out into the world. So when you're standing in a line at the grocery store and it's really busy, that is where you find the resilience to be patient or to be tolerant towards somebody that's maybe a little bit obnoxious or rude or whatever the case may be. But if you've not practiced that with yourself, then it's really hard to extend that to a stranger. Am I right? So you can see how all of these things come together. It mixes together and it makes us aware of our own attitudes and our own resilience in our world. So I really hope that you guys can see the metaphoric connection. The word Hamsa means five. It represents the fingers of the right hand. For Hindus and Buddhists, it symbolizes the chakras, energy flow in the body, and also the five senses and the mudras that affect them. Now, just in case you don't know what a mudra is, In Buddhism, we use mudras to meditate with. Um, this is a mudra, and this is used all over the world. It is the prayer mudra. When you bring the palms of your hands together like this, it is called a mudra. So even if you're a Christian and you use this hand position to pray, it is called a mudra. So this is the prayer position. And then there are a whole school of mudras, that ways that you can combine your fingers and so forth. And these are all energy kind of structures, because you sort of focus on a particular connection between your fingers and so forth. So this is another mudra that is quite useful, especially if you're doing public speaking, or you have to really listen and observe before responding, because this really connects all of your faculties. All the energy points that's in your fingers come together, and there is a flow. So that's really profound, and if that's something that you're interested in, you can definitely just maybe Google some mudras and go down that rabbit hole and explore the power of hand positions during meditation, and benefit from that. So this is another mudra that we're going to be using today. Just the open hand, warding off evil. You know how powerful it is when you extend your hand to say to somebody, stop. It's a universal sign. We all understand it. So really it is that powerful. Okay. So I'm going to just use my hairdryer just for a minute. So do turn down the volume of your device again. I don't want your ears to be hurt. And I just want to make sure that this layer is completely dry. Alrighty, I'm back, and this layer is dry enough so that when I touch it, I don't have paint coming off. It's not completely dry, but it's dry enough for me to continue with our painting. And the next thing I want you guys to do is we're now going to choose that complementary color again. And remember, just for clarity, that my main color is this turquoisey blue green, and the complementary color is the red orange. That is my choice for this painting. So now that I've played, you can see I'm sort of layering between the two. My first layer was an orange with black, and my first impressions and expressions here on my freedom layer was turquoise, using black and white to give me a variety of shades. Right, so now we're going to jump over to that complementary color again, and I'm going to ask you guys to turn your canvas, flip it 180 degrees, because you know why I like to do this as well. In this particular kind of coaching exercise, it helps to disorientate our left brain a little bit, because remember, our left brain keeps wanting to tell us why we can or cannot do something, and it will give you 1,000 reasons why you're going to fail, because you've maybe failed in the past. You've tried a painting like this in the past and it didn't work out for you, and it didn't look like you wanted it to look, and you gave up, So we want to just quiet that brain a little bit on the left that wants to, take charge and control everything. So we can just tell our little left brain, siesta. You're not required today. So I'm going to also add a little bit of red to my orange because I'm looking for a red-orange color. This is exciting. If you guys have any questions, please just type it in the chat, and after the session I will come back and I will answer all of your questions. Okay, I'm going to switch to just a little bit of a smaller brush, and I'm going to mix and a carmine red, and that gives me a red orange that is quite pretty. And you can see how it really plays off the turquoise because they are complementary. So it makes the turquoise look more vibrant and it makes this orange red look a little bit more vibrant. So I'm going to just load my brush. I'm going to put it there so you guys can see. And now I'm going to continue to play. I'm going to make exactly the same marks, but now my brush is a little bit smaller. For zones in between this color, look for areas where you didn't touch before with the turquoise, and I'm just repeating this pattern. For me, it's a pattern that sort of represents freedom. It's a pattern that represents surrender, and there's no threat. I'm raising my arms and I'm saying I'm free and I am whole, I am loved, I'm part of a tribe, and we are liberated from struggle. We are liberated from fear and from suffering. Isn't that beautiful? I think so. Right. Variety is always a guiding light. So again, I'm going to just wipe my brush, and I'm going to come and I'm going to grab some of this white, and I'm going to mix a lighter color of my orange, red orange, by adding some titanium white to it, and this gives me a lighter tint of my color. And I'm going to continue to play on my canvas, and you can see that gives me like a peachy color, and it gives me a bit of variety. So just using two colors with black and white can give you an endless array of mixtures that you can play with, and it gives you a variety that makes the work interesting to play with. So you can see I'm not trying to cover everything up underneath. I'm just adding a little bit of interest here and there. So again, back to variety. Let's use a little bit of black, and I'm going to mix it here on the side, and I'm going to add some of this red, orange, and a little bit of white that was in there is just going to illuminate my color so it's not so dark. I'm going to add a little bit more of this red orange. There we go. In fact, I'm not even going to mix everything completely. As you can see, it's unevenly mixed on my brush. So that's also going to give me a different shade. So again, I'm aiming for spots that I haven't touched with my brush yet. And it's okay if it goes over some of the previous marks I've made. And if you want something darker, you can just add a little bit of black to your, that it gives me yet again a variety to play with. And I'm constantly looking at what I'm painting here and just seeing sort of what does it require to keep a balance. I'm gonna put something dark in here just to quiet that down a bit. Right, I quite like that. So let's rinse our brush out. So with this contrasting color, I don't necessarily want as much as I did of my main color, because this is my, in percentages, I would say this needs to be like 60 to 65% of your painting, and this can be like 30 to 35% of your painting, so that there's definitely one that's dominant helpful. So remember to rinse your brush. Just give it a good vigorous wash in your rinse bucket. And just clean your brush really well, because we're going to need it going forward. And then I rinse it in the clean water. There we go. So I always have a kitchen towel handy so I can see that my brush is nice and clean, so that when I use a complementary color, that I don't create mud. Now what when I say that, so if you're new to painting, if you mix two opposite colors on the color wheel together in equal proportions, you will also get a neutral. So I will create yet another brown, and I've got enough brown here, so that's just why I keep my brushes clean, so that when I switch over to a complementary color, that I don't create a murky brown kind of painting. Alrighty then. So as this is drying a little bit, I wanted to share a little bit more with you about the Hamsa hand. So each of the fingers also connect with an element or a chakra. And this can be quite revealing, because it might, reveal to you, a connection with one of your chakras that you have an issue with, that you want to balance out with, or maybe just make a connection with how you can decorate your hand going forward. Maybe you want to feel the fire element, and it connects us with our solar plexus. So the fire element is really powerful, because it's to do with our passion, it's to do with the things that motivate us. Really, what is your main sort of drive in life, that main north light that gives you your go, the oomph in your life, comes from your solar plexus. And your solar plexus is literally located right beneath your sternum. Also connects us with our flight or fight. So that is also interesting to sort of observe and think about. What is your natural go-to? Are you a naturally confronting kind of person? You naturally want to stand up and fight? Or are you naturally maybe somebody that freezes conflict? So those are sort of the relations that could relate to your solar plexus, your personal will directing your life. Do you constantly need approval or direction from others? Are you constantly asking everyone's opinion in order for you to make up your mind? So you can see if that is one of the things that you struggle with, that maybe there is a blockage through affirmation. So I am, grounded in my personal will. My choices or the personal will is, beautiful and natural, that kind of thing. So you can observe that as well. So the next one is the forefinger, and that connects with the element of air and also our heart chakra. And our heart chakra is literally centered in our chest, and it is the chakra of relationship. It is where we give and receive love. So, if maybe there's a blockage in your heart chakra, then you will find it difficult to relate. It will be difficult for you to love yourself, and it will be difficult for you to love others. So, maybe you are a very self-centered person, and that could all relate to a blockage in your, heart chakra. So, and this connects us with our throat chakra, and this is blue in color. It's actually quite interesting. I'm looking at my nail color and I'm realizing so many of these colors actually just connect to this chakra, and it wasn't planned. Forgive me. So talking about the throat chakra, it's really where we express our personal will. This is where we express our opinion. And your throat chakra is also, the center in your throat where you speak your truth. And maybe you don't speak up for yourself. Maybe you feel that your voice is not heard in the world. And this can be helpful to allow yourself through positive affirmation to give yourself permission to express your personal will. And you can see how these two are related and, all of them really. So that's just really interesting. So let's look at the ring finger connects us with the earth element and also with our root chakra. Your root chakra is really located at the end of your coccyx, and it connects us with planet Earth and everything that is life, your physical body, nourishment, your relationship with food, with, everything that is substantial, things that you can touch, physical object, this physical life, this physical body, this physical plane. And a lot of people are disconnected from their bodies, they are disconnected from the planet, and they are living in their heads and on technological planes of existence, and they are not grounded. And a lot of physical ailments and illnesses and lifestyle diseases is relating to our root. All of this is connected to the root chakra. So if any of this relates or rings a bell or connects with you, take note of that, because it is valuable information that you can use in this art making process to build your personal resilience. Let's take a sip of coffee. A lot of talking, eh? I'm going to look at the cross orange, and it really connects us with our creativity. So I can again understand where a lot of people have a disconnect with creativity because there's a block in the sacral chakra. And interestingly enough, the sacral also connects us with our sexual identity, our sexual energy, because that's a playful energy. It's a creation, indicates a block or a problem in this area of your life. So, being resistant to creative projects or processes could also bring you back to your sacral chakra. So really connect with the inner child. And a lot of our disconnect from creativity happens when we go into puberty. Makes sense, right? So when we're in that confused state of our youth, we've got hormones raging, pimples on our face, we don't quite know exactly who we yet, and yet we sort of want to start to move in our own direction and sort of exert our own personal will and creation energy onto the planet. So a lot of shaming can happen during our teenage phase of our life, and comparison, so looking at others and what they do, and then comparing ourselves with them. And in a way, that can create a layer of disconnect or a blockage that prevents you from really just expressing your creativity in the world. So I think a lot of people on the planet is dealing with sacral chakra um, issues. So it's really something that you can explore and heal and empower in your life. And one way to do that is to have a painting practice and to just learn to love what you create and express yourself. Right. So I think this is almost dry. On the volume on your device as I quickly dry this freedom layer. Alrighty then, I am back and this layer is dry enough for me to just touch it. So I want you to turn your canvas right 180 degrees again, and now we have a beautiful freedom layer that is exciting visually. We've got two contrasting colors and we have enough of a visual. You just to place your hand very lightly on your canvas and just check that all of your design fits, around your hand, because the next stage of our painting is what I like to call the clarity layer. This is where we come out of this creative freedom layer of self-expression and playfulness, and now we begin to bring in some form and shape, and we really starting to tell the story of the Hamsa. Now, there are templates out there that you can use, but I think for a creative coaching session, using your own hand is really, really powerful. I found in art therapeutic processes, when you involve your own body in creating the art, it is really, really profound, and it can be very, very healing as well. So this just makes it so accessible, even if you maybe want to try this with playing with your children. It's always fun because then the hamster will be sized to them. So if you are going to sort of play with how you're going to hang this piece of art, then you can decide. I will share the information with you guys now about up or down. So there are two ways that you can do this. You can face the hand upwards, and in that way I would suggest that you spread your fingers open, because this is the protective mudra. So we're going to protect against the evil eye, so we're going to open our fingers a little bit. If you want to focus a little bit more, you can even do that. Your painting will be facing downwards, but I will discuss that information with you in detail going forward. So I think I quite enjoy the protection. I want to protect the peace and harmony on the planet. So I'm going to be using my hand in an open fashion. I want you to place your hand on your canvas, and I want you to observe the space that you have above your middle finger and the bottom part of your palm of your hand. You're not going to be using your arm, only your hand. And I want you to make sure that your hand is positioned nicely in the middle of all of that. Also look at the space available on the right of your thumb, and also the space available on the left with your pinky. So if you need to just adjust that a little bit, basically I'm telling you to place it as centrally as possible, because if you do it too low, then your hand will be off the canvas. If you do it too high, then there's all the space at the bottom and not a lot of space at the top. And later with our future layers, it will all come together and make sense for you. Right, so I'm going to be just using a hand, but you could also just use whiteboard chalk, or you could also just use a pencil, anything that really can give you a clear line, but you don't want something that's going to interfere with what your art looks like. So no paint at this stage. Okay, so I've got my hand positioned here. I quite like where it is. So and I like this organic kind of feeling that I get from tracing my own fingers and my hand. So again, you will see how suddenly it gives you a beautiful balanced non-organic kind of shape. When I've traced my entire hand, I will lift my hand and then I will just complete the section down here where my arm was. Right. That's beautiful. We've got a hand nicely centered in the middle of our freedom layer. So now what I'm going to do as we continue with this clarity layer is I'm just going to be using a white Posca pen, and this particular one is bullet shaped. This is I don't know, 1.8 to 2.5 millimeters, whatever that means. But you can see it's sort of the traditional Koki size, if I can put it like that. So I'm just going to activate my Posca. It just makes life easier if you can draw, you know, with something that we're familiar with, like a pen, you know. So I'm just getting my paint flowing here on the side. You just see. There we go. So we just want a good flow of paint going, because we don't want to get interrupted as we go about outlining our hand. Now, a tip I can give you when you outline your hand is to sort of work on the outside of the line that you've just drawn so that you don't make the hand smaller. Okay, I'm going to start here. I hope you guys can see on the outside of my pinky. And I'm just balancing my hand by resting on the pinky of my drawing hand so that there's some stability. And it's okay if the lines aren't perfectly straight. Remember, this is an organic kind of interpretation. And there we go, we have our hand down on our canvas. So that brings a lot of clarity, right? Right instantly. Now, if you don't have a Posca pen and you only have paint, what I want you to do is just to use a fine liner or a very fine brush that you've got, and you can use your white paint, but you need to that your paint easily comes off the brush, so that you don't make a mark that you feel is ugly and you want to get rid of. But this is yet another reason why it is so important for you to dry the layers beneath, so that if you add something on top and you do make a mistake, it is easy just to wipe it off and start again, or to correct whatever you're doing. So I've just done that, and I'm just coming in with my white paint and I'm just finishing off some of these lines like that. Okay, so now we have some clarity about our Hamsa and where we are going. So I want you just to draw the eye shape in the center of the hand. So mindful of your ears, I'm just going to quickly shoot this with a blast of hot air. You guys so much for your patience. Here we go. Absolutely. Right, let's check on our little lesson plan here about where we are going, just to make sure that we have everything ready. So now we are going to choose our orientation. Like I said, you can decide whether you want to hang your art like this or like this. Share with you guys the importance of the orientation. So if your hand is facing down, it is also called a Varada mudra. It is when the Hamsa hand faces down, it opens you up to all of the abundance and goodness of the universe, welcoming them into your life. The hand facing down also brings fertility and answers to prayers and manifestations of intentions or goals. Often in this position, the fingers are closed together to bring good luck. So really lock that sort of abundance down so that it doesn't escape. So if you're going to choose a downward face orientation, remember to keep your fingers closed, but it's also not the end of the world if it does not. So I actually quite like to change the orientation of the painting depending on how I feel. So that's also an option, right? So if your painting is going to face upwards like this is called the Abhaya Mudra. And when the Hamsa hand is facing upwards, it is a universal sign against evil. It is a powerful sign of protection, and it shields us from our inner thoughts of hatred, jealousy, and insecurities. Often in this position, the fingers are spread apart to ward off evil. May your Hamsa hand bring you love, light, luck, and protection. Isn't that beautiful? This is exactly why I think this is such a relevant symbol for our current times, and a very beautiful way to bring this together as an art project for yourself. And like I said, you can always create this as a gift for a friend. I think that is really beautiful because it's something that you've made yourself. It has a lot of meaning and a lot of energy is put into it. With every brush mark, your intention of your painting and your hamsa is amplified. So by the time somebody receives this, it's almost like a record of all of that energies and intentions. So it's far more powerful than just an ordinary print. You can see why I like to create this myself. Right. So now we're going to go to the next phase. And I want you just to choose a round object. I'm going to just use my bottle cap here. I just want you to sort of get a nice round object that fits nicely in the middle of your hamsa, in the palm of your hand. So I'm just going to use my pencil because I don't want this line to be overly in my face. I just want sort of an indication of where the middle is. So I can see that. I know that you can't, but I can sort of see the outline of that circle. And now I'm going to go back to my whiteboard chalk. And like I said, you can use ordinary chalk like this that you would draw on a blackboard with. So let me show you how simple that is. And I want you to just create a little bit of an almond shape inside your circle. So that just gives you the dimensions of what your eye will look like. And then right in the middle of that, basically underneath your middle finger, you're going to draw in a circle, and that's going to be the iris of the eye. Okay. So then when you've sort of plotted that and you're happy with the shape, and this is why I like to work with something that's not that permanent, you can always adjust it. If something didn't work out, it's skew or it's misaligned, you can just use a wet cloth and wipe it away and try again. Just dry the surface of your brush going forward. So that's no problem. And then I'm going to come in again with my Posca pen, and I'm going to outline my eye shape as well. So obviously your Posca pen is also an acrylic paint. So if you draw this in and it dries, it will be set there. So if you want to change it, then you'll have to paint over it. And I'm also going to bring in the eye in the middle. Right. So allowing that to dry, going forward, this is getting exciting now because now we finished the clarity layer of our painting and we can see clearly where the hand is, where the eye is going to be. So the next stage or the next step of our painting is going to be all about negative painting and some positive painting. So what do I mean when I say that is negative painting is when we work around the object or the shape that we are painting. So we're going to be facing or dealing with the outside perimeter of the hand, and then that will further develop our painting. So this is really the ugly stage of the painting, and this is where a lot of people give up and they say, okay, well, I've created this painting now and it looks juvenile, or it looks like from preschool. It's not a beautifully developed finished painting. This is exactly where you should persist and continue to add layers of interest to the painting until you are happy. But I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to jump right back to the contrasting color that we have here. I'm going to add just a little bit of water to that. I'm going to use, oh, forgive me again, bumping my camera. I'm so sorry. Okay. So I'm going to just activate my brush here, and I'm going to use my remaining orange color on my palette. And I'm just going to activate it here. And I want to add a little bit of black to it. So I want to create a dark brown, but not as dark as my background. I just want a nice chocolatey color. So what you can do again is using your contrasting color between the two and just adding not so much black. So this is a beautiful chocolatey shade, and if I hold it against my board, you can see that it's definitely lighter than the background, but it is still a dark color. It's not a bright orange. So this will all make sense soon. So I'm going to load my brush now. Oh my word, I mixed a bit more there on the brush. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to be painting around our hand. I'm going to show you how to do that. And I like to start here next to my pinky, and you sort of just have to watch your brush so that you place it next to your Posca line, and you are slowly just painting around your hand. Now the part that I want you to focus on is the part of the brush that's touching the fingers, so that you don't change that line. So this is where mindfulness comes in quite a bit, because you can't be doing this and talking on the phone, right? So you can imagine doing this while, recording a class. Challenging. If your paint is skipping too much over your canvas, it means that you need to add just a drop of water to improve the fluidity of your paint. So I like to dip the toe of my brush back into some water just to help the paint flow off my brush. I don't want it to be too thick. Beautiful. Right. So we're going to come back and clarify that as we go. You can hear it's a Sunday morning. The doggies are barking outside. I'm just glad it warmed up a little bit. It's not so cold anymore. And this is why we don't do painting in the park in the winter. It's really just too cold to start with a early rise and to be in the park by 9 o'clock in the morning. It's still a bit cold, eh? So we'll start again in the spring. And if you live in Gauteng, here in South Africa, and you are interested in one of my painting in the park sessions, I will add all the links to this live afterwards. You can find my profile on Quicket. Quicket in South Africa is a ticket platform through which I sell my event tickets. And you are welcome to follow my profile so that you are notified when I put up my next event, which will happen this spring. So I'm just outlining around this hamsa with this nice orangey chocolatey color, and I'm just making sure that it's giving us a nice opacity, there's a nice coverage. If you're using a student grade paint, you might need to let it dry and add another layer. So be mindful of that. If you don't get the same coverage as I do, remember I've painted this a number of times already, so I've got that brush mileage beneath my belt that is giving me the confidence with my brush here to create these confident brush marks. But it might take you a bit longer, and if it feels like I'm running ahead and you're starting to lose me, just pause the video and catch up with where we are now, and then when you press play again, we can proceed together so that you don't fall behind. Right, so that looks nice. Awesome. Okay, let's rinse our brush. So this is where I save a lot of time, because now we've got the positive space and the negative space. The positive space is the hamsa itself, and the negative space is what's happening around it. So now that we've put one layer of a thicker outline in a contrasting color around the hand, you can see how it really helps the hand to stand out from the canvas. We're going to allow that layer of paint that we've put on there to dry, and while that is happening, I'm going to switch to another brush, and I'm going to use titanium white on the white bits of my eye, and I'm going to use my turquoise to bring out the center of my eye. So let's start with the white, and I'm just going to use the white paint here on my angle brush, and I'm going to just fill in these two triangular shapes around the iris, and I'm going to make that white. So if the white that you are using is very see-through, it might be a zinc white, which is a mixing white in acrylic paint. So then you'll have to dry this and add another layer. I hope you guys are doing well and that you're enjoying this. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to add a comment to this video. I will be checking all the comments a bit later, and I will answer any questions that we have that arises. Right. So keep this tight, keep this neat as possible. So we're going to allow that white space to dry. Let's rinse out. Wipe off. There we go. So now I'm going to go to my turquoise, my main color. And you can also have the classic Hamsa blue eye. So if you do some research on the internet, um, you will find images of the Hamsa with those classic blue rings, blue and white rings that you would find, especially like the ones that you see in Greece, in places like that. And again, if you cross over your lines, don't stress, we're going to define this going forward. You just want to fill this in with a first layer of color. There we go. That's doing really well. Okay, let me just check here on my lesson plan side. So give me a second. Mind your ears. Alrighty then. Okay, so now I'm going to continue to focus on the outside of my hand, the negative space. And again, I want to mix something fairly dark and then we'll go lighter from there. And I want a different shade. So I do like this sort of gray kind of teal color. So I'm going to add a bit of water here, bring in my black paint and add turquoise to it to create a nice dark gray teal color. I quite like that. That looks nice. And again, it's harmonizing my painting because I'm using the same colors over and over. So now I want you to basically leave the width of your brush away from your Hamsa. And we're going to add another outline around this. So basically the width of my brush, concentrating, being mindful. Add a bit of water if you need to improve the fluidity of your paint, but not so. There we go. I'm just going to do a thin line in between the hands by turning my brush a little bit more vertically. And I'm going to continue to leave a bit of the brown that we just put in. So I don't want to cover it all up. Making sure that I'm keeping a bit of an organic feeling. So coming back in here. You can see add a bit of water. I'm really focusing more on what I'm leaving behind as a negative space. I hope that makes sense to you guys. There we go. So let's rinse off. We're going to allow that. We're going to start to just define our eye a little bit better. But I think for safety, it's a good idea just to give it a Alrighty then. Okay, so I did mention earlier that I'm going to be using some phthalo blue and some phthalo green, which is really the foundation of a turquoise color. Okay, where shall I put this? You can also, I'm just going to place it on there. Use a fresh palette if your palette is too busy or too crowded with paint. But for me, this is all family. It's the same kind of color. It's just a bit going to be more intense. This is from my professional stash from Lucas Acrylic and from Montmartre. Here we go. Alrighty, let's mix these together. I'm just going to use a different brush here just to mix them. So you should see like a dark teal color. It's definitely not blue anymore, and it's also not just green. So that's a beautiful teal color. What I talked about. In fact, let me just do that. I'm going to use my liner brush. And we're going to basically paint a circle inside the center of our eye. That's nice. So you can see how that draws the attention to the eye. And because this is the same color family as the turquoise, it's just a darker version, draw a circle around the outside of the eye. And that helps to define the eye as well. That's awesome. Okie dokie. Let me see where we are in our painting class. Okie dokie. So now let's let that dry and let's get back to this outline. I think what we can also outline the eye, the entire eye. So I'm going to bring this line on the outside of my eye. And I'm going to skip to my smaller angle brush here. And I'm going to paint in an eyelid. Now think of it as a little bit of a half moon shade that we put on top of the eye. And it's just covering the iris a little bit, just like the top part. Like that.